parecer listo. Para que parezca que había un plan detrás. Sí, acabo de sacar. ¿Verdad? Sí. Bueno, que acaba la promoción ahora porque no las podía solapar, lógicamente, pero...
¿Qué tomas?
Un libro de relatos, no.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Bienvenidos,
and welcome
to
all of you to this press conference of Radio Televisión Española. As you know, in RTVE we have RTVE means that's our logo. We are cinema. It is the driving force of many other films in the audiovisual arena. It's in the current. And then it's the great wager of RTVE Play, which has become a platform with an abundant catalogue of films, mainly Spanish cinema. And it currently has more than 300 Spanish recent films, most of them participated by RTVE, and it has managed in RTVE the figure of unique visitors over 73.7%. Let's see what we can find on this platform. And if no one's downloaded it, please, you can do it right away.
Buenas noches, Rodrigo.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
El mejor cine español está en RTVE Play.
¿Perdón?
Las películas participadas por Radio Televisión Española son las más vistas en la plataforma.
Tenemos mucho que celebrar.
Somos Cine se dispara y suma ya casi 33 millones de visualizaciones.
Que no hay marido, que me caso yo sola.
Rollo Me Too.
Estás de coña.
Nos recordará lo que ha ocurrido y lo que jamás debería volver a ocurrir.
Más de 8 millones de usuarios han disfrutado de alguna de las películas españolas en RTVE Play gratuitamente.
Construimos casas para los pobres. Queremos construir 2000.
Con una media de casi medio millón de usuarios únicos al mes y más de 600.000 horas de visionado del mejor cine. Las películas más vistas.
Que un profesional como tú esté interesado en trabajar con un equipo como el nuestro.
Interesado no sería la palabra.
¿Cómo murió papá? Se murió de repente antes de que tú nacieras. Eres una mentirosa.
Premiadas en San Sebastián.
¿Tú sabías que los franceses, en los tiempos de antes, vinieron a conquistar?
Y de meterme dinero a mí que está en la cárcel, ni de preocuparse de mis tías.
Luego, cuando podemos pensarlas tranquilamente, las cosas se ven de otra manera.
Ganadoras en los Goya.
No podemos tener a ese individuo ahí cuando llegue la comisión.
No sé qué estoy haciendo.
Lo que puedes, hija, estás haciendo lo que puedes, Amaya.
No quiero tanto que no sé decirte que no.
Mañana en el primer vuelo nos vamos.
No vamos.
Me lo prometiste 2 días.
RTVE Play es cine.
Pues es todo lo que podemos encontrar.
That's everything we can find in RTVE Play. And what we've got today is a film, Escape, which will, this afternoon, will be premiered nearby. And as you can see, the president of RTVE, Concepción Cascajosa, and the councillors, Sanchez and Ramón Colón, it's time to give José Pastor the floor. What have we seen in this project, so RTVE to form part of it? Good morning. Well, I think, amongst other things, this project, what we saw quite clearly was Rodrigo Cortés's personality, a director from his opera prima, his first film, 2007, and concursante, had not participated with Televisión Española, one of the most important directors in the current scenario. He hadn't worked for us for a long time, and this film shows once again that Rodrigo is an author, and he doesn't doesn't stick to rules. He wants to meet a mission, and he does it successfully. And he's added on and Morton's like Martin Scorsese in the executive production, which is a landmark in our cinematography. It's a film which is consolidating his career, which has a great cast, great production and distribution as well, and we think it's going to be one of the films, the most important films of the year, and a film that we hope we can continue this relationship that we've taken, we've come back to after many years. Escape comes here. We have Adrián Guerra as the producer, Rodrigo Cortés, the director, and two of the protagonists, María Casas and Castillo. Elena Sanchez, up to you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here in the presentation of Escape. I think one of the words that we're going to pronounce most in this is the word freedom, which is the freedom with Rodrigo. Cortés has always made his films. First of all, could you place the spectators, no one better than you, in this story, which is disconcerting because he's a person who wants to enter into jail. No one wants to go to jail, but he does. To a certain extent, it's Burial, for example, is just a man that wants to leave, Buried, for example, a man who wants to leave a box or coffin. When you leave a coffin, you leave, or box, you almost enter into another box. But it is true, freedom would be a word because it's looked at from the most radical freedom. So therefore, it sounds even much more beautiful than what it is in general. Because if there's a synonym for freedom, it's usually responsibility, and you've got to take charge of those decisions, free decisions, if we want to call them that. But I, as a spectator, when I see other people's work, that Escape, if it has a virtue, is we don't protect, it doesn't protect itself. It makes decisions, it accepts the risks, and it takes a path which is perhaps disconcerting, and the spectator has to manage the material just like we did, which is the best way we can. Responsibility, I imagine, and a lot of getting under the skin of N. Mario Casas is the protagonist of this story. He's a character who's about to explode, and he's absolutely isolated from the world that surrounds him. In fact, he appears with headphones on many occasions. What physical immersion and emotional immersion, a character that takes us a lot of complex areas. Yes, for me, it was great. I'm very lucky to portray this character, N, and to be able to take the journey along with Rodrigo. He's a perfect director to go hand in hand with him and to construct this character who I think is complex. But the good thing is, I imagine that Ana would probably agree, on behalf of the actors, we've been very fortunate. I think what prevailed above all were the performances. What Rodrigo wanted, where there were long takes, we didn't make many cuts. I say this because this is a gift, really. Instead of 10 or 20-minute takes, it's not you become the character. So it's very lucky to have a director like that, where acting prevails and the characters as well, which is very important in films. And in this case, N's journey. How would you introduce N? How do I introduce him? That's impossible. He's very, very important. Well, he's a character that you don't know which way he could go. He wants to get off of life. He doesn't want to make decisions on his own. He wants others to make decisions for him. And he's a character, as I say before, he's a box of surprises, and he takes you down that journey which doesn't stop surprising you. Anna, you portray N's sister who lives almost incredulous and with a great empathy towards what happens to him. Talk about your character and what it was like to talk with Rodrigo. I agree with what Maria said. It's been a gift to work, how Rodrigo says exactly. We entered into limbos of concentration that for actors. It's vertiginous, but it's great. I had a good time. Abril is the sister of N. She lives concerned, trying to protect unconditionally her brother, but she's very practical. She's not paternalistic, she's not condescending. Sometimes she's afraid, but she tries to protect her brother and herself from the fear. And I think without her, she contributes a certain amount of light within a story which is very complex, that albeit maybe quick and fun. It has a lot of darkness and a lot of grief. She tries to put a bit of she tries to balance all of these questions. Adrián, you've accompanied the career of Rodrigo for many years, since his second film. Apart from Corpus Sante, you've always produced his films. Well, so we talk about the freedom with which he works, and to support a film such as this, which is difficult to classify, which is unclassifiable. What's it been like to accompany him on this journey? Well, it's a great pleasure, as always, to work with Rodrigo since my first film that we made together. Basically, our work as a producer, at the end of the day, is that we completely trust Rodrigo, and he generates a space of security for him and the actors to make the film. And hope that, and it's a great experience, and it shines as it does. And Rodrigo has a lot to say and do there. Rodrigo, of course, people would say that where does this story come from? It's a free adaptation of Enrique Rubio's novel. He has Asperger, and why did you want to make it your own? Because you've made it your own, very much your own. It's different to the novel, but it stems from the novel I read, Escape, 8 years ago. And the manuscript before it was published, I liked it very much. It was a story very different. It was an 18-year-old boy who had diagnosed Asperger, was educated outside society without any human contact, and he had to react to the system when he's, thrown into it, basically. And I said, the way it's written, you can't adapt it. It would be a cold report, a scientific report, very interesting, but not very cinematographic. But over time, I couldn't stop thinking about this premise, and I said, Enrique, if you allow me to betray the story, this is going to be a story that's going to be difficult to overcome. It brings about, a lot of people are not going to want to participate with money in this film, but if you allow me to betray the story, to deeply respect its spirit, I'm prepared to climb this mountain. And it was quite fun, because when I read the script, he said, thank you for having respected the title of the novel. But he saying it not ironically, because he liked it very much, and because he understood that we had to find a new language with another character, with other protagonists. Ours doesn't have Asperger. We don't know what's the matter with our character. Sometimes you use those references. Sometimes he worked almost like animals. His body, and even the children who had primary things that they want to do, and not easily to manipulate, because the only determination is overcoming any wall, and you can't punish him, because with what you punish someone is exactly what he hungers for, so therefore that becomes a paradox. It's difficult to anticipate the spectator. It's difficult, I imagine, to get ahead of things, because everything happens back to front. And that's what Rodrigo says is very interesting. From where did you build N? I was talking about the animals, people that have got Asperger, I don't know, autism, people in a certain way are disconnected. Yes, we never wanted the issue from there. As an actor, the first thing I proposed that to Rodrigo is to submerge myself, to research everything, but Rodrigo says, no, let's create our own character and our own story. So we started physically to work, lose weight. He wanted to be thinner, to have a beard. And in rehearsals, to test this with Anna, we started to try things with our body, to talk much slower, which I thought, which is the most complicated, because I was always going against the rhythm of what you expect in the sequence of the characters. But we found it in the rehearsals, and then during the shooting, I think the first few days we found Andy. And initially he didn't speak the first few days, And I thought I was freaking out because after a week, the character starts to talk. He said, "Remember, tomorrow, Ernest starts to talk." And I was, freaking out, but we were playing. Really, it was almost, it was work by playing and having a good time, and to go as far as we could. Now he said, "Try this. Now go over the top." And from there, you start to measure, and there's a character that has a lot of edges to him, but it was a constant play. And I was saying, well, if you receive this script and you read it without knowing who the director is, I'm not too sure whether you'd have got involved in this adventure. I don't know how much of it Rodrigo Cortés grabs you by the hand, invites you to this, because upon the script, it's a very crazy proposal. I'm not too sure. I would have said yes. Reading the script, I felt something that beyond an actress, because it's true, if you tell me Rodrigo Cortés is, you feel confident, but as a spectator, reading the script, I didn't understand the tone, I didn't know how to classify what kind of film it is, of how it was going to materialize, because it didn't ring a bell of anything I'd seen before. I can imagine my version of this film, but then let's see what it's like. So there was a bit of that made me very curious. And you know, when you read a script and you don't stop reading, so there was a bit of this that made me feel very good.
Esto es interesante.
It's not Rodrigo. If it wasn't Rodrigo, I would have said no. I understand that, yes. Mario's involvement has nothing to do with mine, obviously, but you've got to jump into the pool. In the deep end, there's no way about. I jumped and I spun around. I said, "Rodrigo, what I'm doing, I'm losing the plot, really." That is to say, I got lost. At the end of the takes, I'd be shaking. I didn't even know where I was or what's happening to me. So when I read it and I know Rodrigo's behind it, I said, let's go ahead. Otherwise, it would have been quite difficult. I would have been a bit more contained or restrained. I say this because Mario Casas. Why Mario Casas? Well, first of all, he's a great actor, and plus he's a warrior, and he's crazy. And he's capable of diving into the deep floor, or off the 8th floor into the deep end. And he's very brave as an actor. And the only instruction there, obviously this turns into many things, but what I chose him, I said to you, trust me and trust yourself, because we would have to moderate something very special, but I knew he was going to dilute himself into that world. I can't imagine his responsibility as an actor. Anna can say as well. It's practically obsessive in the work and how he dilutes himself. And when we worked, we talked very little from the rational. I never used adjectives. He initially asked for adjectives. I said, no, we're not going to use any labels. We're going to work from the truth of your body. And let's try to find true spaces that are going to happen, and that generates the conditions for things to happen in the scene. And sometimes we spent 30 minutes without cutting the take. That isn't uncontrolled, but that's once you find what's happening and you see that it exists, you ask everyone to go to the first position without taking the cut, because cutting dissolves the energy and it makes everyone start to talk again. And then after several of these cycles, in their research work, they went to places they didn't even think. It was impossible to think. When you say finally cut, you see quite often Mario awakening, going, I don't know what I've done, and I don't even know where I've been, and bring me a coffee. And so they gave him a coffee and he left, and you prepared the next take. And that confidence is beautiful because it's a gift, because it allows you to moderate many things during the editing process. But you need trust. You need actors with that talent. We're talking about Ana Castillo, who's she's a super actor. I've just defined Mario, Pepe Sacristan, José María Pro, Blanca Portilla. Yes, the supporting actors is the best that we've got in Spanish theatre. You need, yes, we could just But you need the trust and confidence, because there's something that's going to happen later in the editing room. An actor can risk himself a lot if he feels or she feels that he or she is protected, if they feel that the ship is sailing more or less under control, because later, if an actor trusts you, you can say, go even further, because if it doesn't work, you're not going to use it. And you're going to have to moderate things, looking for the real elements, and that's part of what a director has to do. Protect and honor the exposure that the actors provide. Maria, you wanted to say something? Let me finish. Adrián, the film is incredible because of the cast, and it seems you've had more means than you had. You say, we've done, it's a work of art. Yeah, it's the most difficult film in our career to find a career finance. We had 18 sources of financing. We were looking for money everywhere, and there were scenes we didn't know we were able to pay for them. And the shooting plan was, well, we've got money, we'll use a car, otherwise we'll use the car in the scene, or we'll invent something. And there Rodrigo was a great leader and captain, because with imagination and the staging, he resolved situations that we honestly didn't know how to solve. For example, the jail isn't a real jail. It's a factory which is quite worn out, and to find a space to be able to visualize it, which is our jail, with a lot of personality, it allows us to anchor the film very much for a long time there, thanks to the vision of a great director. And so therefore, many happy accidents that happened during the film, where we found things that were problems, and he knew how to turn things around, to add it into the film, to use his own aesthetics into the tone of the film. And I imagine that Televisión Española participating is important for the film, and also the freedom with which you work from Televisión Española. That is, there's no involvement or to try to change anything. You respect the author very much. Yes, it was fantastic. The project is feasible from the outset, thanks to the support of Televisión Española. It was the first cornerstone that we were able to set up to undertake the film. And everything was from maximum respect and friendship, and we want to repeat in the future. We could talk about many things, about the editing process and so on and so forth, that Rodrigo dominates as very few, because he edits all his films. But I think we're going to finish by saying that dreams do come true, and Scorsese is behind your project when he's the person that took you to love cinema. It's like closing a circle, isn't it? That things can be achieved. Yes. In fact, I can't explain it. It's like witchery. I'm a child who's 13 years and in Salamanca looking about what film I'm going to see when I was a kid in Salamanca, considering that film by Villar with Paul Newman and The Boy in Legend is going to be good, and ends up this way. I remember that I felt what was happening on the screen, which was more cinema than what we called cinema, something that was genuinely cinema. And it broke away your affected your senses, but to close the circle in this way, which is inexplicable and improbable, and to have who your reference is, not only professionally, but also as regards attitude, and he's being a master and accompanied by the loyalty and respect and that caution. I can't really, it's unclassifiable. Well, okay, well, thank you. Congratulations on this start here in the gala that will be held this evening on the 31st of October. It's premiered in movie theaters, so you can go and see it. Those who have not been able to see it here. Maria, this afternoon is the premiere here in San Sebastian of Escape, here in RTVE, where we celebrate all of those films in which we participate.
RTVE y el Festival de San Sebastián.
Como yo te amo,
una historia de amor.
Nadie te amará.
Al cine.
Nadie te amará. Nadie, porque yo te amo con la fuerza de los mares. Yo te amo con el ímpetu del viento. Yo te amo en la distancia y en el tiempo. Yo te amo con mi sangre, yo te amo como el niño a su mañana, yo te amo como el hombre a su recuerdo, yo te amo a puro grito y en silencio, yo te amo de una forma sobrehumana, yo.
Como patrocinador oficial del festival y participando en 10 de las películas seleccionadas, nuestro compromiso con el cine español es cada vez más fuerte. Una historia de amor de las que nunca tienen fin. RTVE, somos cine.
Tiene la palabra
Concepción Cascajosa, President of Radio Televisión Española. She has the floor. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. Excuse me the scarce quality of my voice today, but you know what the San Sebastian Film Festival is all about. I'm very happy, the truth be said, of being here in a week in which some dreams that I had when I was a little girl, Rodrigo, have become a reality. I've seen a film by Martin Scorsese. I remember a person who had dedicated themselves to being a lawyer during the transition when I was 15 or 16, and this we're premiering on Wednesday prime time with a great success. I think those invisible threads that connect us throughout life, and that also include Ana Castillo, with I was in the jury here several years back, well, obviously is especially beautiful, and to have the reason to celebrate that dreams do become true precisely in the framework of the San Sebastian Film Festival, which is a place which is extraordinarily privileged, because it's a place where people just like you artists, creators, men and women, and quite on many occasions you can see your work on the screen with other people, and to be able to see how dreams are materialized, because at the end of the day, cinema, quite often we talk about cinema as an industry, and in the last years I've tried to give value to the importance of Spanish cinema as an industry which is creative, and an industry for the first time, in my opinion, in history, we've managed to do that. Now we're giving value to audiovisual productions, the shootings, that is, say, secondary jobs that are created, and we should not forget, and also to fight against any other types of narratives as regards Spanish cinema that I think that have harmed Spanish cinema, but I think it's harmed us as a society to forget that section. Cinema is also culture. It's something that unites us, particularly in the case of Radio Televisión Española, not only due to legal regulatory issues, but because of the conviction we have significantly supported cinema in co-official languages. And in fact, I can remember that a year ago, precisely the film that won the festival was the materialization of that effort or endeavor. Cinema, I believe, Spanish cinema, to understand the geographic diversity that we have. There are films that are developed that happen in Madrid, others that happen in many other places, from north to south, from the top to the bottom, in the islands, in Spain, in the autonomous cities and communities. I think cinema is a window to the world of the geographical reality of Spain. It's a very important value, because it's an element that allows us to also understand each other as a society which is much richer, much more diverse. I think that more and more so we're going to see Spanish audiovisual programs which we're not only going to see other languages, but also more accents, more colors, more richness, shall we say, at all levels, from not normative bodies, from the representation of people, persons with disability, precisely. Well, a few days ago, we created the Radio Televisión Corporate for an advisor that's going to help us to work much better the representation of all of the different specially protected groups. I think this is very important that we should have that as a reference, and of course, cinema that is more and more egalitarian. I don't want to insult aspects like half of heaven, but it is true that Radio Televisión Española has supported like nobody else within the Spanish context, and I have to say this in a loud voice and clearly, no one has supported films directed by Spanish women in Radio Televisión Española, way beyond the framework and what's regulatory. But the process of the transformation of Spanish cinema in the last few years has been materialized in awards, in this festival in Malaga, in Berlin, and the Goyas. For example, without the promotion of Radio Televisión Española, giving the opportunity to film directed by women and the talent of women when nobody else believed them, and particularly, in many cases, also certain operators, for example, they want films directed by women, they looked at it as if something that was secondary. Films directed by women is not only not something secondary, it's a moral obligation that Spanish society has, so that the imagination, the life, and the wealth of the world of women is also represented on the screens. And in fact, you can also see in the data that is published every year by the Equality Observatory, for example, how we've produced that threshold of parity that we hope that in a few years, being able not only to help the first film, but the third and the second, third and fourth film of these women directors, we can really achieve figures of total equality following the quotas that are established in other contexts at a European level. So therefore, I'm especially thankful to the cinema and fiction section of Radio Televisión Española led by José Pastor. I want to say hello also to Gervasio Iglesias, who incorporated himself, well, about a year ago. I remember the conversation we held in a cafeteria very close nearby when he was going to form part of this work. Gervasio has come from the production side of things. He has worked in Televisión Española and he's come back and he's controlled taken the control of Maite Pisonero. I would like to talk about some of the aspects that they've worked about, and in this sense, as I said, I just want to recognize your work. I think it's important that we have as a reference that the audiovisual ecosystem has nothing to do with those what we had 10 or 20 years ago. Change and to evolve and to understand what is the role that a corporation should have, like Radio Televisión Española in the current audiovisual context is complex, but to change, to evolve and to transform is also very brave, because we know that there are always forces that avoid changes, that prevent transformations, and they resist themselves to doing things in a different way. So therefore I want to thank the work that they've done in this area, precisely to understand what the needs were that the Spanish audiovisual industry has, the role that Televisión Española Corporation should play here, and also precisely accompany not only associations as producers. That last Monday we held our work meeting with the main associations of producers to listen, production companies to see and to take notes, and to also talk about the lines of work and to find lines of collaboration, but also with distributors, with exhibitors, and also broadcasters, and with the tissue, with the fabric of festivals, because to a certain extent, some build and dream in rockets and others design them and others build them. But there's a platform that has to be launched, and that's a classic, that's necessary, which are the film festivals. And there's many things that will be announced over the next weeks and months, and some will be monographic sessions will be held in film festivals that will take place in the next few months and weeks. But I would like to highlight at least two of them. One is supporting short films for new talents in short films, to accompany creators, men and women who, from the most, when they're just starting, where we're going to support short film festivals festivals, short films, and so that we not only acquire rights, because 6% is just the rights to be able to show them, broadcast them, but we want to use, we want to be a think tank and also an incubator of projects. And I think it's key that the Radio Televisión Española should look at these people, the way they new outlooks on, because society changes, the world changes, Spanish society is changing very, very quickly, vertiginously, for example. And I should, quite fortunately, we're richer, wealthier, but we're more diverse. And I think that one of the big elements of the richness that we can do for culture and Spanish society is precisely accompany all of that fabric of young creators and men and women who wanted to make their dreams come true. So therefore, just simply, that's all I wanted to add. I want to thank you very much to all of the teams of the films that are here today, because we know today is a very beautiful day and very moving and exciting day. And undoubtedly, I want to thank the director of the festival, José Luis Rebordinos. This year we've signed an agreement for 3 years collaboration. We have RTVE Play, which is dedicated to the film festival here in San Sebastian. We've reinforced the promotion side of things, and part of this, and as the key element, we have two. There's to see Spanish cinema and to see the Radio Televisión Corporation, Española Corporation. We wanted it to be on La Uno in the prime time, and also cinema of co-official languages. This is of fundamental importance, but I think it's also as an example of the new modalities. The way we are RTVE Play, Somos Cine, we are cinema, is a big catalogue. We have 300 films at present, and each of those films are finding a new audience day after day, precisely because they're on RTVE Play. Thanks to that, precisely, we have this RTVE Play San Sebastian, which has gotten together in the cooperation of Radio Televisión Española and here in the Film Festival in San Sebastian. Very little more to say. Thank you very much for those that dream to make, want their dream to become true. Hopefully we can help on the journey. Long live cinema and long live Spanish cinema. Thank you.
Gracias, Conchi.
Thank you, Conchi. Well, a big round of applause for them. And this afternoon, enjoy the film Escape. Thank you.